In this lesson, we're going to look at converting a rate in between the metric and American systems. We've already seen the conversion of rates earlier on in just the American system, but we're going to take a look at it here as well because these are kind of tricky problems, and so it's good to get a little more practice with them. So we're going to convert 30 miles per hour to meters per second. And actually, something I forgot to write into the example problem here is that we want to round to the nearest tenth. Remember that we know for sure that we're not going to get an exact answer here because all the conversions between the metric and American system are approximate. So we'll round to the nearest tenth, whatever we get. All right, so we'll write down our 30 miles per hour. Miles on top, hours on bottom. And remember, we just focus on one unit at a time when we're doing these. So let's first take a look at miles. Now, if we look in our chart, we see a couple of conversions involving miles. We see that 1 mile is approximately equal to 1.62 kilometers. And, 1.61 kilometers. Don't know where I got that 2 from. And, and that 1 kilometer is about 0.62 miles. Okay? So we go back over here and set up our conversion factor. Remember, how the conversion factor sets up is what will help me determine which of those to use. So I have miles on top and I want to get rid of it, so I better put miles on bottom and kilometers on top. And remember, we would always rather multiply than divide, and so I'm going to make sure I have a 1 in the bottom here, so that means I need to use this one here. 1 mile is approximately 1.61 kilometers. Okay. All right, so now at this point, we've got ourselves away from miles and into the metric system, so that's good news. But we're still not to meters yet. Okay, and remember, to go from kilometers to meters is pretty easy. I just need to move my decimal point. So we'll get to that in a moment, but let's look at the hours now. So our hours can be converted into minutes by noting that 1 hour is the same as 60 minutes. All right, we've done this little trick before. So cancel out our hours. And then finally we need to go to seconds from minutes. And so we'll put minutes on top, seconds on bottom. And so that's, of course, 60 seconds in 1 minute. So now what we're going to end up having is kilometers per second. But let's also see if there's any simplifying we can do. Notice I have a 30 here and a 60 there. So 30 divided by 30 is 1. 60 divided by 30 is 2. So what we end up with here is, in the next step, simply 1.61 on top over 2 times 60 is 120 on bottom, and that's kilometers per second. Okay. Now I want to round to the nearest tenth, and so let's take this 1.61 kilometers and turn it into meters. Right. So 1.61 kilometers equals, move the decimal point 1, 2, 3 places to the right. So 1,610 meters. So that becomes 1,610 meters over 120 seconds. Okay. And we can do even a little more simplifying here. This is nice. Since these both end in 0, we can chop off that 0. So what I have here is 161 divided by 12. And we'll see what we get from that as an answer rounded to the nearest tenth. So 12 goes into 16 once. 12 goes into 41 3 times. And I need to keep going a little longer here. 12 goes into 50 4 times. And then finally 12 goes into 20 only once. So that means I will round my answer here to 13.4 meters per second.